Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mabel Martinez, and I'm the Education USA advisor for Jalisco, Colima, and Nayarit. Welcome to all of you on Zoom, and also to the people that are watching us through Facebook Live. Before starting this information session for graduate candidates, I want to share with you a couple of reminders. Please note that you are muted and your video has been turned off. If you have questions, I hope you do. Please type them on the chat and address those questions to Q&A Education USA Mexico. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can type your questions on the comment section. Last, the recording of this session will be available on our YouTube channel, Education USA Mexico, in case you want to watch it again or share it. Next slide, please. To address today's topic, we have a very special guest. I'm happy to have here Marisol Rios. She is the Director of Admission of the Price School of Public Policy at University of Southern California. Thank you very much, Marisol, for being here.
Gracias por la invitación. Thank you.
And together, we will walk you through the process of applying for a master's or a PhD program. Also, we are going to discuss the process that happens after you send your application. And for that, you guys right, we're going to talk about the graduate selection committee and how they work and the process that they will do when they receive your application. Hopefully, at the end of this session, you will have a broader understanding of the process that you're about to begin, or maybe the process that you have begun already. And also behind the scene, we have Angela McCracken, the director of University of Southern California, the director of the Office of University of Southern California here in Mexico. And I just want to say hi to Angela. Angela, thank you very much for being here as well. Before getting into the subject, we would like to know a little bit about our audience. So we're gonna launch a poll. If you can please tell us what level of study are you interested in pursuing in the United States? We are receiving already answers. We have a few masters. Sorry, a few doctorate degree. Most of you are looking for master programs. And I think, yeah, 88% is looking for a master degree, and 17%, 3 people, are looking for doctorate degree. Thank you very much. That information will be really helpful for Marisol when they discuss the graduate selection committee process, because it's a bit different for PhD and master's candidate. And before moving forward, I also want to launch another poll. I want to know if you have heard about Education USA before. Yes, no. If you are on Facebook, please type your answers on the chat. Okay, most of you, I'm so happy to see that most of you know about have heard about Education USA before. Thank you very much for sharing these insights with us. And now, for those of you that don't know about Education USA, if you help me with the next, please, I'm gonna share a brief information about what is Education USA. We are a worldwide network of advising centers that belongs to the U.S. Department of State. And that is why we said that we are your official source on higher education in the US. We provide orientation on the selection process of universities, and also we offer advice on scholarships and financial aid opportunities, student visa, and in general, the US academic context. We have a very broad type of services, and all of those services are completely free. So reach out to us. You don't have anything to lose. And if we can move to the next slide. So let's start with today's topic. And for that, I'm gonna give the floor to Marisol so she can share with you some advantages to study a graduate program and why you should apply for grad school.
Thank you, Mabel. Again, thank you for the invitation to participate and have the opportunity to present with Education USA on this important topic. You know, why graduate school? So you have to think about, as you know, when you're done with your undergraduate education, you think about whether or not you want to further continue with your education. And there's different reasons of why people continue their education and apply to either a master's program or a PhD program. So some people have an interest in, you know, in intellectual curiosity. So they want to, you know, further, you know, their interest in a specific field. Some people are looking for a more specialized field of study. They want to gain, you know, depth or breadth within a certain area of a specialized field, you know, and some other people, it's, you know, it's their career goals. They want to attain a master's or a PhD program. For a PhD program, many people might want to teach. So if you want to teach at a university, if you want to teach, or you even want to do some research or work for a research think tank, you want to pursue a PhD. So you do definitely will need to pursue an advanced education to be able to attain those goals. And then many people pursue a graduate degree because they want to increase their earning potential. And it, you know, it really depends on the field that you're pursuing. But many people do it for that reason, to increase their earning potential. And then there's many opportunities employers offer. And this is where a lot of, you know, and I encourage, if your employer does provide tuition benefits, in the US, a lot of companies do provide this benefit. So a lot of people do take advantage and pursue an advanced education by taking advantage of the benefits. So, you know, these are a few of the reasons why somebody would pursue graduate school, a master's or a PhD program. Next slide.
Thank you, Marisol. And I'm gonna keep to the next slide, and we will have back Marisol in a few minutes. Now that you know advantages of attending grad school, I'm going to give you a very valuable tip for you to study in the US, and that will be use the 5-step guide of Education USA. This guide is a framework that all Education USA advisors in the world use to simplify the process of applying. So we understand this can be a long and overwhelming process, and that's why we divide it into 5 simple steps so you can focus on a specific important task. In this session, we're going to talk about the first 3 because the steps 4 and 5 are related to the task that you need to complete after you are accepted in a US institution. So we're going to skip those steps for now. But the first step is about research your options. And for that, we suggest you find the university that best fit your needs. How are you going to do that? By defining your priorities and answering what is most important to you when selecting an institution in the US. So probably here we have a couple of options, but probably for you already have a couple of those ideas on mind. Maybe it's the facilities, maybe it's the faculty, the funding opportunities. Funding opportunities is one of the most popular options among my advisors. I believe 98% take this factor into consideration when they looking for their dream institution. But you can also take a look at the course offering, for example, the program itself. And my advice here is that you focus on the program, not in the university, or don't take a look at a specific ranking. Focus on finding a program or institution that can help you to accomplish your study objectives. You can also focus on, as mentioned before, the faculty, especially for PhD candidates. This is a very important factor because at that level of a study, you want to find a professor or a researcher that has similar interests to yours. Or maybe internship opportunities, work opportunities, volunteer opportunities. This experiential learning can give you an edge when you also are looking to increase your hands-on or your professional experience. So these are just a couple of examples, but there are other elements that you can definitely consider when selecting an institution. It will depend on your specific needs. So we're going to see this step as the step of reflection. You need to do an exercise of introspection to determine which elements you value the most and in which proportion. So I suggest you ranked these priorities, and maybe all these criteria, because maybe all these criteria are important to you, but not equally. So maybe funding opportunity is your highest priority, and then facilities, and then faculty. So if you have two institutions that you love equally because the program is perfect for you, but option A has a great funding opportunities and option B doesn't, maybe it will be easier. Then it will be easier for you to choose option A as your one university that can fit your needs. So this is the purpose of having all these criteria. So it will be easier for you to narrow down your options. And it's really important that you remember that here in Education USA, we said that the best college or university is the one that best fit your needs in terms of academic, financial, and personal terms. Also, bear in mind that there are over 1,000 universities in the United States that offers graduate programs. So be sure to allow yourself to have enough time to research potential graduate schools. We suggest you start your research process at least 12 to 18 months prior to the academic year in which you hope to enroll at a US university. So if you're thinking on applying on the fall, for the fall term in 2022, good, this is perfect timing. If you're wondering how many universities you need to select, try to narrow your options to up to 5 universities. It can be more, it can be less, but if you select them in a strategic way, your chances to get admitted into grad school will increase, and we consider that number of universities is a suitable one. Also, if you are wondering what resources you can use to find start looking for schools or programs, my colleagues and I are going to type on the chat a very important link where you can start your process of searching schools. Also, you can attend fairs, participate in these sessions, try to gather as much information as you can. And if we can go to the next one, thank you. Since you are going to start looking for different type of programs, I thought it would be helpful for you to realize there are two main type of programs in the US. The main difference between these programs is the approach. Academic degrees are more research oriented than professional programs, and they offer, they often require a thesis or capstone project in order for you to graduate. Instead, professional degrees are designed to directly prepare students for a particular field of study. They are hands-on, to put it that way. And I thought this was really relevant for you to know, because when you are looking, for example, Master of Logistics, at one university can be considered as Master of Arts, and another university maybe that can be considered as a Master of Science, and it's perfectly normal and it is okay. And that will be all for the first step. If I can have the next one, please. Thank you. And I would like also that you see your studies as an investment. I'm not gonna lie to you, education in the US is quite expensive. We're gonna talk about costs in a little bit, but especially if you compare the education in the US to the education in Mexico, you're gonna get in shock about how much the difference is. But at the end, it will give you a competitive advantage, not only in the professional field, but also in the personal one. You will grow as a person and also professionally. And believe me, I know I did my master in the US, and it has been an enrichful experience. So if we can move to the next one. That leads us to step 2 of the Education USA Guide. And that will be focused on finding ways to finance your studies. In this step, the most important question to answer is, how are you going to pay for your education? This is a crucial step because several times you only focus on getting admitted into a graduate program, but you don't think, you get so excited that you don't think a little bit farther. And once you receive your letter of admission, you start looking for ways to cover your expenses. And if you do so, you might lose a few very important financial aid options. For example, here in Mexico, we have the Fulbright Garcia Robles scholarships, scholarship for graduate programs. That gives you up to $25,000, but for you be eligible to apply, you cannot be enrolled or admitted into an US institution, because part of its benefits is guiding you through the whole admission process. Also, another example can be that you miss the opportunity of applying for merit aid scholarships or other type of financial aid available at the universities. Sometimes the paperwork to get those financial aid opportunities need to be completed at the same time that you are filling out your graduate program application, not after you get admitted. Of course, this can vary from university to university, and of course, you are going to find financial aid opportunities if you are admitted in a U.S. university. But if you have this picture before applying, it will give you a better chances to apply for more scholarships. And that is why we suggest you also start your financial planning as early as possible, just to have a bigger picture, and you can make informed and realistic decisions when selecting a graduate programs, because sometimes you are going to be accepted in one university, but you are not going to be able to afford it. And we will not want that happen to you. So here are a couple of financial aid types. I have divided them into 4 categories just because I think it's easier for you to research in that way. And please understand that when I refer to financial aid, I am trying to include all type of money, work, study opportunity, fellowship, grants. So it's a general term. We are not going to deep into this topic because it's quite extensive, and we will have other sessions to address this matter. But I consider it's important for you to know that there are some or a lot of opportunities for you to funding your program in the US. And I know I have been talking a lot about planning, but believe me, it's very important. As we said here in Mexico, el principio es la mitad del todo. So in order for you to have this information organized, it is important that you have it, from my point of view, on papers. So I'm going to share a cost sheet with you. This is only for your reference. You don't have to use it if you don't want it, but I think it will gives you a better understanding of what you need to take into consideration when selecting a graduate program. Just give me a minute. And aha, here it is. Here it is. So this is the cost sheet that some of my advices uses. Some of my advices use. You can see here, you can include here the name of the universities that you think that you that fit your needs. You can include the name of your program of the study, and please note that the name of your program can vary also from institution, from one institution to another. Maybe in one institution it is called logistics and management, and in other institution it's just logistics. So try to bear that in mind, because when you are writing your essays or you are writing your letters of recommendations, you don't want to mix those names. Also, I suggest you look at the percentage of admissions of the universities, just to make sure to include different types of institutions. We want to have a strategic university selection process. So I think it's very important for you also to take in consideration this. Also, you can include the priorities that we have been talking about, the facilities, the geographic location, the program, etc. You can include that here. Then you can include the tuition and fee information. And then we have the financial aid section. Again, the universities, and you can add or remove the tabs as much as you want, as much as you need. Remember, this is only for your reference, but here I already include some of the most popular financial aid opportunities available by US institutions, scholarship, assistantships, administrative internships, scholarships, work on campus, etc. Scholarships granted by Mexican institutions, the Fulbright Garcia Robles, CONACYT, Becas MOB, CEF, gobiernos estatales, etc. There are others, you will find others depending on your profile, your program, and many other criteria. Financial aid and scholarships provided for international students. And also here, if you are a dual citizen or you are an American citizen, you can also include here special opportunities for according to your nationality. And also we will have loans and self-funding. I know this is an option that not everyone wants to take, but if needed, it's good for you to know how much you can put out of your pocket so you can help you out to cover your program cost. Then we have the estimated cost, and that will include student living cost. It's not only about paying the tuition or the fees. You need also to take into consideration room and boards, the books, the health insurance, the personal expenses, transportation, etc. So you can include that information here. Every university on their webpage gives you an approximate cost of this, of all of this. And also you have to take into consideration the expenses that you are going to make before arriving into the US when you are applying for the program. Flight tickets, student visa, GRE, GMAT, English language test, application fees, translation of documents, etc. And last, you will have a graduate program requirement sections where you can, we're gonna talk about, Marisol is going to walk you through all these documents in a bit, but you can also include that information here, and also to take into consideration the deadline of the program, because that will give you a framework of time in which you can prepare to have all this information. And again, I thought it was helpful for you to know that you can have this document in case you need it. And if we can go back to the presentation, Jorge. Thank you. And well, here is a here is the average cost per year. I know from university to university it will vary, but I think this is a very accurate information, so you can estimate how much a program will cost, and it goes from $50,000 to $70,000 per year. All right, that will be your cost of attendance. So I just wanted to share with you, so you bear that on mind. And now we are going to move forward to the step 3. Jorge, if you can help me. And this, yes, on step 3, it's all about completing your application. And here, as you can see on the slide, your uniqueness will be your magic. I know it sounds cheesy, but I wanted to include something that makes you wonder what makes you unique or different from the rest of the applicants. Why University of Southern California, Berkeley, Harvard should choose you? How are you going to stand out from the rest of the candidates? What drives you? I'm not sure if you have thought about those elements, but those are really important. Some documents on your application will be a chance for you to stand out, so take advantage of them. And with that, I'm gonna let the floor again to Marisol so she can walk us through the application process.
Thank you, Mabel. So to complete your application, there are various documents that need to be submitted in order for you to complete an application. Again, not all programs, it really depends on the institution, depends on the program. They all have different requirements. And it was nice to see the sheet that Mabel was referencing. You know, if you're applying to multiple programs, it would be a good idea to have a sheet that has, you know, all those different things and items, deadlines, when scholarship deadlines, you know, when schools have their deadlines, and just to be able to gather all of your information, because it is a process. And if you're going to be applying to multiple schools, you want to make sure that you don't miss the deadline and that you submit the right documents to the right institution. So having that checklist and a reference sheet would be very important. So most importantly, you know, official transcripts. All the universities are going to require you to submit official transcripts. And if you're applying to a US institution, they're going to require you to submit original language transcript along with the English translation. So that at least USC requires that from all international students. Again, you want to check with other institutions that you are considering. But at USC, we do require transcripts, original language, and the English translation. There are different processes, and I'll give an example. At USC, there's the process of the evaluation of your transcripts, and then there's the degree verification. So the evaluation of your transcripts happens at the time of admissions. So the USC Office of Central Admissions needs to review your transcripts. If you are admitted, you have to go through a third party to be able to verify your degree. So that happens after you've been admitted. That's where you need to submit a copy. You would need to submit your original documents, your original diploma, and that happens after. So some universities could have a different process. USC used to do it on campus, and it was just too much, so they outsource the degree verification to a third party. So that's different from the evaluation of your transcripts that happens during the admissions process. So there is a separate verification that happens afterwards. Most programs are going to require you an essay, a personal statement, or a statement of purpose, and I will talk a little bit more about statement of purpose. Require TOEFL scores or IELTS scores. If you're an international student and you did complete your degree your undergraduate degree in the US, you're exempt from taking the TOEFL or the IELTS exam at USC at least. Letters of recommendation, that's another important part of the application, which I will talk a little bit more detail about letters of recommendation. Some programs require 2, others require 3. Some of them might require academic, others might require professional letters, but I'll get into that a little bit more. Work experience, and your work experience, that's going to be, you know, you submitting a CV or a resume. Usually the work experience you will show, of course, in your CV and your resume. Depending on the type of program that you're applying, you want to focus on the experiences that are related. Most importantly, make sure that you mention those experiences that are related to the degree that you're applying to. So, you know, if you've done volunteer work, internships, make sure that you include that information. If you're applying to a PhD program, a doctoral program, you definitely want to include information on research. If you've done any research, that's definitely going to be important. Your proof of financial support as an international student, students will have to show proof of the first year would have to show financial support of the first year, that they'll be able to support themselves. If there is funding being provided by the program that you're applying to, you won't have to submit, because if you're getting a scholarship from them, that becomes your financial support. And so you don't have to submit documents from your bank, that you will be able to support the first year of your studies in the US. So it really depends. Most PhD programs provide full funding in the US. So there is no need for you to submit a proof of financial support, because you're going to be funded for the 4 years of your studies in a PhD program. Application fees, typically, I believe the application fee at USC is $90. They can range from $60 to probably a little over $100. It really depends. Some programs, some institutions will offer application fee waivers. So keep an eye out when you're applying to programs, institutions. You know, if you're talking to an admissions counselor, ask them if there's application fee waivers. But there's always a fee when you're going to be applying to graduate school. And like Mabel mentioned, you know, try to narrow down the number of schools that you're applying, because it can get expensive if you're applying to multiple schools. And you really want to narrow down that search and applying to the schools that are really specific to what your interests are, because they could get expensive and pricey paying application fees. Some schools might require credential evaluation, the graduate entrance exams, the GRE, GMAT, LSAT, and the MCAT. This year, last year, towards the end of last year, the last year's admission cycle, and then this admission cycle, a lot of universities waived the GRE due to COVID. I don't know what the plan is. At least USC still hasn't announced if the GRE or GMAT are going to be waived for the fall 2022. We're kind of waiting to hear, and we'll probably know in the next couple of months. But a lot of universities this year waived the GRE, and a lot of schools, a lot of universities are looking into removing the entrance exam. But this is something a lot of schools require as part of the application. So if you're looking at applying for fall 2022 right now, you know, you're participating in this presentation, and so you're early in the whole process of preparing to applying for fall 2022. So start looking into the GRE, the preparation. I know Education USA, you know, can provide you with support and guide you through the GRE. And they have great resources. So, you know, take advantage of the resources that Education USA has to offer. You know, and again, look at the programs that you're applying to, you know, what their average scores are, what their minimum scores are. Some schools will require the GRE, but they might not put a lot of emphasis in a GRE or a GMAT. So it really depends. Research experience, like I mentioned earlier, really depends. If you're applying to a PhD program, and I know there's a few in the group that were looking at doctoral education, research experience is going to be important as part of the application process. And then some programs do require interviews. Not all the programs will invite students to interview for their program. And, you know, completing the application is going to be important for your file to be forwarded to a committee. So it's really, really important that you meet the deadline and submit a complete application when you're applying to different programs. Next slide. So taking a closer look at essays, you know, there's, like I mentioned earlier, some refer to statement of purpose or personal statement. It really depends. It's the same. It really depends on the questions that the program is asking, depending. Some schools and some programs might not even have a prompt. They might not even have essay. So you're kind of lost and you don't know what to write about. But most of them typically will give you a prompt. And, some of the topics that typically you want to make sure that you address in your statement of purpose is, how did you become interested in the field, in the field that you're applying? So for example, if you're applying to public policy, why did you become interested in public policy? What areas of public policy are you passionate about? Certain policy issues, education policy, health policy, social urban policies, transportation policy. So this is where you want to talk about, the field and why that interests you. Another topic is, the activities or experiences that you've had that have prepared you for the field. So if you've had internships, if you've have jobs, if you've done some research in the field, you want to make sure that you also address that in your statement of purpose, because that's going to stand out. And then what are your research interests? And this is more important for students applying to doctoral education, is your research interest. That's going to be very key. And part of your essay is, what are your research interests? Do your research interests, because the essay, like Mabel mentioned, this is an opportunity. The essay is an opportunity for you to stand out and to distinguish yourself from the rest of the applicants. The application, you fill out, all the important information of an application, but the essays is the important part, because you're going to be able to distinguish yourself from everybody else and how you answer the questions. So for doctoral education programs, research interest, you definitely want to make sure that you talk about your research interest, because that's going to be key for the doctoral committee. And then what's important, what we, as an admissions person, what I want to see in an essay is, why are you interested in my program? Why are you applying to USC? Why are you applying to the School of Public Policy? Is our program a match to you? And because that's what we look for too, especially in a PhD program, we're looking for, the committee is going to be looking for students that match the research interest of the faculty, because at a PhD level, it's very competitive, and there's only a few slots available for PhD students to enter. At least our PhD program, we only bring in like 5 students, so we get about a little over 100 applications. So it's very important that if you're applying to a PhD program, that there is a fit and there is a match with your research interest and with those of the with those of the institution and the program that you're applying. And the same stands for at the master's program. Mabel had mentioned earlier about the fit in looking for certain universities and focusing on the academic. It's not sometimes the ranking. You can be a #1 school, but that #1 school might not be a fit for you, because they might not offer the courses or the specializations that you're interested in. So these are the kind of things that we're looking for in admissions. It's what attracted you. So you want to make sure that you in the research that you do early on, and the things that Mabel had mentioned about choosing an institution, you definitely want to research, because this is where it comes in. Is we'll be able to see in the essay, we'll be able to see, has this person done the research in the institution, in the program that they're applying. It's going to be your opportunity to highlight the things that attract you of our program. And it might be faculty, it might be the coursework, it might be a research center. So you definitely, those are the kind of things that you want to talk about in an essay. Next slide. Letters of recommendation, and taking a closer look at another important part of the application are the letters. So for a master's program, it really depends if you've been out of school, for a while, and it depends on the type of program. If you're applying to a professional program, professional letters of recommendation are going to be very important. If you just graduated from undergraduate, we are definitely going to want to see academic letters or recommendations. So it really depends where you are. If you're a recent grad, or if you've been out of school for a while and you're a professional, if somebody, and at least in our programs, for example, at the Price School, if someone's been out of school for maybe 2 or 3 years, we would want to see at least maybe one academic and the rest, the 2 other letters can be professional, or they can be all academic. If you are a recent graduate and you have no academic letters of recommendation, that can be a flag. You definitely want to, if you're a recent grad, you want to make sure that you do get academic letters of recommendation. And you know, right now, because you're preparing and you're looking at a possible fall 2022, you have plenty of time. If you're currently, you know, in school right now and finishing up your bachelor's, right now is a great opportunity to start connecting with your faculty. It's very important that you build those relationships with them, because they're going to be the ones that you're going to be asking them to write letters. So it's important for them to know what your interests are. And so that way they can write, you know, a good positive letter of recommendation. You also want to, you know, when you're asking a recommender, you want them to be familiar with your statement of purpose. So that's why you can share your statement of purpose with your recommender, you know, and again, you know, go to office hours, start talking to them early on and making those connections so they know what you're interested in. And it is important that they know you for at least a year or more. You don't want somebody to write a letter of recommendation that might not be a positive one. So choose your recommenders wisely and make sure that they're going to write good letters of recommendation for you. For PhD applicants, academic letters are very important. You definitely want to have letters from faculty. If you've done research with certain faculty, you want to make sure that you also get letters of recommendation from faculty that you've done research projects with. And again, you know, having those conversations with faculty early on and connecting with them and talking about your interest, and, you know, sharing with them your statement of purpose before you send it in, before you submit your application, and just sharing when you're requesting a letter of recommendation. A lot of students, the advice that is given to students is if you're requesting a letter of recommendation from especially a faculty, it's helpful for them to have a copy of your statement of purpose. And that way it helps them see what your goals are and what your interests are if you haven't had a recent conversation with them. So, and again, you know, that they know your work for at least more than a year. And most importantly, you know, give them enough time. Letters of recommendation can slow an application, the review an application, because if the letters of recommendation are not received, many times the files are not forwarded for review because the file is considered incomplete. So letters of recommendation give your recommenders enough time to be able to submit the letters for you. Don't wait till the last minute to ask for the letters of recommendation. Next.
Thank you. Thank you, Marisol. And yes, please, letters of recommendation are a very important document. And we have also resources to help you writing an essay or a letter of recommendation. And last, before getting into the graduate selection committee process, here is just something that you can use to calculate your application expenses, application fees, documents, translation. You are going to multiply that for example, application fees. You can multiply that by 5 because we suggest that you apply for 5 universities, but it can be 6, 7 documents. You only will need them one time. Translation, only one time. TOEFL one time, GRE one time, and test prep one time. All right. So you can see a little bit how you can calculate your application expenses. And next slide, please. And I wanted to share this phrase with all of you because you are about to start a long and overwhelming process. And if you get admitted into grad school, will not be by a chance or an opportunity. It will be for the hard work that you are putting or you are going to put into the process. So let the graduate admission committee to know that you are a hardworking and a valuable student. And with that, we're moving with our first question regarding the graduate admission committee. So Jorge, if you can help me with the next one. So Marisol, now, if you can tell us who is part of the graduate admission committee.
Sure. So it really depends, again, on the institution. It depends on the program, but most of the time a graduate admissions committee is composed of faculty, admissions staff. Some schools bring in students as reviewers. Not all the schools, but there are some institutions that will form a committee of faculty, staff, and also have a student reviewer. At the Price School, it really depends on some of the programs. There is a chair who makes a final decision, and then the admission staff. If you're looking at programs in schools, a lot of the schools are willing to share this information. So I would recommend if you're really interested in finding out who is part of the admissions committee for a particular program that you're applying to, ask the question. If we're asked, if a student asks me the question, it's not something that is a secret, and we do share with students. Typically final decisions or decisions that sometimes require maybe third review, final review. It's usually a faculty, the chair of a program, that will make that final decision. There's some programs that don't even have a faculty review, and it's all staff review. So it ranges and it varies by the type of program and the type of institution. But it's important for you to know too, because how are you going to address, and again, this comes with your statement of purpose, and who are you going to address that statement of purpose to? Is it a faculty member? Faculty members, is it going to be a senior admissions officer that's reviewing your application? So it really depends. So my recommendation is, reaching out to the different programs and the schools that you're applying to learn who is reviewing your application. If, at least at the master's level, it can vary. At the PhD level, doctoral level, it's going to be faculty. Faculty is going to be, because faculty students will be working directly with faculty. So they're the ones that do make the decisions. And it depends at USC and our PhD programs, because we do have 2 PhD programs. The decisions are done jointly by both programs, and they do have subcommittees, and at the end they come together and they decide who are the students that they're going to admit for each of the programs. But it is at the PhD level, it's definitely faculty that's going to be reviewing your application.
Thank you, Marisol. And I just forget to mention that she was, right? You were part of one of the graduate admission committee. You have been part of the graduate admission committee, right? So yes. She knows what is she talking about. She has been reviewed application. So yeah, that is a very good insight. Jorge, can you help me with the next one, please?
Just to add on a little more, because I have been part of the PhD process. I don't make the decisions at the PhD level, but I have been in the doctoral admissions committee. And if you're applying a PhD, those of you who are in this group and are interested in PhD programs, start if you've identified certain faculty that you would want to work with at those at certain programs, universities, start reaching out to them now and start making those connections. Because what I've seen in a committee is, you have different committee members, and if somebody stands out, the faculty member that the student or the applicant might want to work with might not be part of the committee, but the file is brought to the attention of the faculty. So then the faculty member, the committee will then present the file to that faculty and say, hey, do you know this student? Has the student reached out to you? So they might not be part of the committee, but it is at the PhD level, it's still very important to connect with the faculty member that you want to do and you want to work with, because they might not be part of the committee, but they do have an influence in sharing their recommendations to the committee about the student. And especially if they reached out to them earlier on and they've been talking to them, you know, the committee will, you know, like I said, they'll go to them and say, oh, you know, here's a student, he's on the top of the list, what do you think? And then the faculty will say, oh yes, I've been talking to the student, I connected with them, you know, our research interests match. So at the PhD level, just because they're not in the committee and they're going to be making the final decisions, it's still very important to reach out to those faculty, especially at the PhD level. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
That is a great tip. Thank you very much, Marisol, and hopefully our PhD candidates here have heard very well what you just have said. Another question is related to who makes the decision. How does the graduate admission committee make a decision?
So there's, you know, I talked about the application, you know, the different material. You know, the universities, graduate programs receive dozens of, you know, even hundreds of applications from many stellar students that are qualified. But you know, you want to stand out. So you want to make sure that your application, again, this is where it's important, where your application is complete, because the screening, at the beginning of the screening, the process is they're going to start looking at, once they have their entire pool, they're going to start looking at, you know, does the applicant meet the requirements? Do they have the standardized test scores? Do they have the relevant experience? Is the application complete? You know, are other letters in? So that's part of them making a decision, is the file complete and can they move forward in making a decision? So, you know, once the file is complete, again, it really depends on the type of program and the institution that you're applying. That file can be sent to the first pass, and it can be to the first group of reviewers. It can just be the staff reading the file, and then it gets moved over. Or if there's something questionable about your application, you know, there's usually 2 or 3 people who review your application. But at this, you know, it's important. They're looking at different parts of the application. You know, if you're applying to programs that have a very strong quantitative focus, they're going to be looking at your quant work that you've done in undergrad. That, you know, if you submit a GRE score, they're going to be looking at your quant score. So there's different factors in how, you know, the committee makes their decision, their final decision. And it really depends, you know, what the program is really looking for. But everything that I mentioned earlier in the application, what a application requires, that those are all key important components of the application, and that's going to help the committee make a decision. And like I said, it really depends on the program. It can be 2 or 3 reviews by 2, 3 committee members. The faculty could be making the final decision, or it can just be a staff who is making the decisions at the master's level. At the PhD level, what I mentioned earlier, the research and the interest and the fit, those are going to be very important for the committee and how they're going to make their decision, because that's what they're going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at, you know, does the student's research interests match those of the faculty here, you know, depending on the program that you're applying. So research is going to be very key at the PhD level and how a committee is going to make a decision.
Thank you, Marisol, for that insight. I'm trying to move to the next question, but I just forget that I don't have the control. So Jorge, if you can help me with the next one, please. How much time does the graduate admission committee take to review an application?
It really depends. And I'm going to use USC and the price school as an example. So if students submit an application by our first deadline, which is our scholarship deadline of December 15, we typically notify students of their decisions by mid-February, which is pretty early. I think we're usually one of the first schools that starts awarding or sending out decision letters to our master students in public policy, public affairs, urban planning programs, public administration programs. That's usually around the time. So there is, in the US, there's a certification national deadline of April 15. So in the US, a lot of graduate schools will send out, if you're getting some type of funding, you'll get you should get a decision letter before then, because there is that national deadline of April 15 that students are required to certify their enrollment by April 15. So usually, typically, decisions will start, if it's a December deadline, universities will start sending, and programs will start sending out their decisions February, March. Unless you're not applying for funding, if you missed the scholarship deadline, it can take about maybe 6 weeks, or it can be sooner. So it really depends. If you're applying later in the process, not during the peak time, it can take about 6 weeks. At the doctoral level, we're actually pretty early in our PhD programs. Our deadline's December 1st, and by mid-January, we're already sending offers, PhD offers. So our faculty are reviewing applications during the holiday break. And, and a reason, a lot of, there's competition. There's competition because there's a lot of stellar students. And so some schools want to be the first ones to send out their offers, especially for PhD applicants. So I think we've done a pretty good job in sending out decisions for PhD programs really early on. And again, they also have that April 15 deadline. So most programs will review files, and we'll start sending out decisions by February and early March is how soon a file can get reviewed. Now, your file can you can submit your application, but if your file is not completed, there's something missing, it can take long. So a lot of the schools, at least our programs at USC, we won't disqualify the student. The file will just remain incomplete. We won't deny an applicant because their file is incomplete. For us, it's the student did not submit a complete application, so we're not going to move it forward for review. So some schools might penalize you for that. So you want to make sure that you do look into the schools that you're applying and what their process is, because it could delay the review. It could delay for a file to be sent to a committee to review if you're missing, your test scores, if you're missing, especially your transcripts, and of course, your statement of purpose. It's really important. I mean, the committee won't be able to review your application without a statement of purpose. So, again, the importance of submitting a complete application, the sooner you'll get a decision by the school.
Thank you, Marisol. So pay attention, a lot of attention of the documents that you are collecting. So another question is can I ask for feedback once I receive a decision?
Some schools will give you feedback, others will be very general, and because it really depends on the applicant pool size that the school has received. We usually, if a student asks for feedback, we usually wait after we're done with the admission cycle. We'll usually meet or talk to the student after we're done with our peak and reviewing the majority of applications. But yeah, some schools will give you feedback, and you can ask if they can give you feedback and the decision. They might provide you with some tips and what you can do next time. And sometimes it's not even if you weren't, I mean, you can be a stellar student, but the program might only be admitting maybe, especially a PhD program, because it is so competitive. You can be, if they only admit 5 and they received 150 applications, it doesn't mean that you're not qualified for a PhD program somewhere else. It's just so competitive. So, when you're applying to PhD programs, it's going to be a very competitive process because you're applying and only certain slots are available because the programs offer full funding. So they can't admit every student that's qualified and is a stellar student. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind that, it is a competitive process. At the master's level, it really depends. And you could ask, some programs will give you feedback. My stuff is actually pretty good. If a student reaches out to them and they ask them for feedback, there's only certain things, especially if we weren't part of the review process, we really can't comment, but we can more or less give the students some general information. If we see that the students' GRE scores were not at par or were below the average, we will comment and we will say, you know what, your GRE scores, this was our average of our admitted students and you fell below the average. So you might, with our recommendation would be, you might want, consider retaking the GRE. So those are some of the things that, someone from the admissions team can, the type of feedback that they can give you and recommend you.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much for those insightful thoughts. We have a lot of questions, but we are running out of time. I promise we're going to answer all of them by email, but I want to do just one quick question that I think is quite important. What makes an application outstanding? As you, when you were at the admission committee, what was something that you considered was an application on this outstanding application?
So, I mean, if we're talking about a PhD program, I think an application that will stand out is somebody who has a strong academic record, who has a strong research background, and their research interests match those of the program that you're applying. So that needs to stand out. At the master's level, and I think because of the type of programs that I recruit for, these are the type of programs, it's the type of students that come into our programs are very passionate students who want to make a difference in the world. So a statement of purpose will have a lot of impact. A student who's interested in public policy and talking about certain policy issues and what policy issues they care about. So those are the kind of things that stand out. And again, this is in my experience at the Price School and the type of programs that I recruit for. Those are the kind of things that stand out and make a student a strong application. Of course, a strong undergraduate academic record, with test scores that are competitive, especially are applying to programs that are very quant focused, like for example, our data science program and our public policy program. What's going to stand out is the quant background, the quantitative experience that the student has. That's going to be something that our faculty is going to be looking for, and that's going to stand out. So it really depends on the type of program that you're applying. If you're applying to an MBA program, work experience is going to be something that they're going to be looking at, depending on the type of program. But it really depends. It really depends on the type of program that you're applying to.
Thank you very much, Marisol. We're gonna give answers to all of your questions by email, but for now, that's everything. George, yes. The last thing that I want to say is thank you again for watching us on Facebook, to be here on Zoom, but let Education USA guides you through the process. As you can see here, we try to sum up the whole process in 1 hour. it was not enough. And if you have some troubles, if you want advice, if you want help, that's why we are here for. We are here for offer you that. And we are 26 advising centers in Mexico. Reach out to your closest Education USA center. And the last slide, Jorge, please. Last, you can reach out Marisol, Angela, and me. This is our information, contact information. So we will be happy to answer all of your questions. And that's it. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you very much, Marisol, for accepting the invitation to participate.
De nada. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and particularly if you have specific questions about the programs that the Price School offers, public policy, public administration, urban planning, or data science program. Feel free to email me directly, or or you can reach out to Mabel, and we can work. I'd be happy to meet with you individually. We can set up a time to meet, so I'd be open to that too. So, but again, thank you to Education USA and to everybody, Mabel, for organizing this and giving me the opportunity to present to the students.
Thank you all. And yeah, that's it.